and then I give my life to him, and then he's able to like save me and all that. What about those who never got the chance to get to know about it? What happens to them?
What about those who never got the chance? Hebrews 11, I mentioned a few of those. So they didn't know about Jesus, they passed, and they couldn't be in heaven. Not only those who never got the chance, but those who were born out of sin. Those babies, many of them, not all, we don't know for sure, are going to be in heaven. Well, how do you know that? Is that just a nice idea? No, because David's own child was born out of murder and adultery. And what does David say when he's weeping? I'm glad I know that he's not going to be with me, but I'm going to be with him. So it's not going to be some type of reincarnation of the son. It's no, he's going to be in the son of heaven. And so that even dampens the Canaanites were wiped out, but even the babies were killed, right? Well, how do you know that those babies aren't going to be in heaven? If David's baby's in heaven, or not murder and adultery, I'd say there's a pretty good chance. So there's obviously millions, if not billions, of people who will have never heard the name Jesus, but will be in heaven. The Ethiopian eunuch. You heard of him? Okay, so he was reached in one way. Lydia, the seller of purple, was reached in another. So through the intellectual evidence, Ethiopian eunuch. Someone read this to me, please, because I don't understand. What is the book of Isaiah really talking about? And Jesus is exposed to him through the scriptures. Similar to Lydia, she needed the intellectual side. Then there was a slave girl. She needed to be ultimately relieved from being a slave to come to know Christ. Then there was the jailer. He needed a typical blue-collar male, right? He needed some type of miracle revelation. Well, he was fortunate enough to get one with the jail doors bursting open and Paul coming out, and all of a sudden he says, "Oh, this actually is a miracle. I believe in God." So you see how God reaches. That's Acts chapter 10. If I were you, I would check out Acts chapter 10. See how God reaches different ethnicities, different people with different jobs in all different types of ways. And that's what I love about that. Lastly, if you're sitting here in your class at Rutgers and somebody starts laughing at Christianity or says Christianity is narrow-minded and bigoted, I would look at the African tribes that I think you were talking about, referencing, and go to somebody named Laman Sana, who was this top professor at Yale, unfortunately passed away, African guy, and he said, so much of what you're exposed to here in America is you sit in a classroom as a college student, and if you're an African and you've migrated over here, you have scholars, professors looking at you saying, you're dumb for believing in the spiritual. They're not saying that because they have to be very sensitive, especially to people of color. And so they're not saying it explicitly. But the whole implication is, oh, this idea of God. How ridiculous. I love that Africans, though, Laman Sana talked about, have come over and said, we feel totally disrespected. Now, they're trying to have tolerant language, but we feel totally disrespected because they just say, oh, the miraculous, oh, this idea of God, how ridiculous. And so it's tremendously narrow-minded of the professors and judgmental to say there's no way that the miraculous can happen. But what I love about some of these African testimonies, they said, we've come over and we've gone to Harvard, we've gone to the Rutgers, we've gone to these big state schools. And we know that Christianity completes our faith. These tribes that are not Christian, way more so than any other type of secularism, godless type of teaching here in the U.S., because it only reasserts what we've been taught and then capitalizes on it, saying, why are people ultimately valuable? Why do we sacrifice for others? Was Jesus actually a real person who came to be God? So I found that so interesting when Laman Sana talked about that, because it's more militant of the godless teaching by many professors who try and just say, oh, we're going to be culturally sensitive, but we're not really going to be, even though we don't realize it, by saying there's no way the miraculous just